I hope you like the clickbait, you dirty dogs, because it's time for us to look at another Daedric Prince, the Lady of the Night, Mistress of Shadows, Empress of Murk, the Shadow Queen, the Daughter of Twilight, the Saint of Suspicion, and Lady Luck herself, Nocturnal, the Daedric Prince of Night, Darkness, and Mystery, the patron of thieves. Most interestingly, she is given the title of Ur-Dra by other Daedric princes, which has some interesting implications, including her being, quite possibly, the most powerful of her kind. Now that's quite a bold claim, considering how powerful the rest of her ilk are, especially since Molag Bal apparently ruled the world at one point, and Nirn's Dagon apparently destroyed that world. Man, why is it whenever something majorly evil is going on, it's always those two? Anyway, Nocturnal would apparently dunk on both those guys, which is an ironic statement for Molag Bal over here, but how come Nocturnal doesn't seem to have that level of an effect on Nirn? How come she isn't a patron goddess of a race of mortals like Ur-Dra, constantly brewing plans to invade the place like Molag Bal and Dagon, sending armies there like Meridia, or just doing something absolutely massive all the time? Why is she associated with lurking in the shadows, something typically done by the cunning rather than the strong? Well, you should know the deal by now, because we're looking at the worship, nature, powers, and story of Nocturnal, Lady Luck herself, in episode 5 of the Daedric Prince series.
My, what do we have here? It's been a number of years since I've set foot on your world, or perhaps it's been moments. One tends to lose track.
So it's worth quickly covering what a Daedric Prince is. I cover this in my other Daedric Prince videos, with the Hermaeus Mora one being the most detailed, but is worth covering again here, because it could be specifically relevant to Nocturnal. Now, Daedric Princes are a type of Et Arda, also known as the original spirits, and the Daedra are simply the ones who had absolutely nothing to do with the creation of the world. By contrast, the Magna Gi are the guys who started working on it, then bailed when they realised they were losing their powers, and when they bailed they created the stars and the sun by bursting through the sky into Aetherius. Then there are the Aedra, the dudes who saw the entire project through, willingly giving their power to create Mundus. The reason this is so interesting in Nocturnal's case is because of a title I mentioned before, Ur-Dra. It's a title among Daedric princes most often associated with Nocturnal, and while we aren't 100% sure what it means, it is associated with power, authority, and age. This implies that Nocturnal was the most powerful and eldest of the Daedric princes. And while the most powerful part is up for debate, considering the whole Jiggalag situation, Nocturnal being the eldest does make some sense. You see, quite a few creation stories have the Daedric princes come from the void itself. This is the case with the Anuad, the elven creation story, where the Daedric prince are born of Sithis' shed blood, and given Nocturnal's association with night and the dark, her link to the void is obvious for all to see. While the Khajiit confusingly don't have Nocturnal as the eldest in their creation story, they do link her directly with the void. To these catfolk, Nymera, the Daedric Prince of Hunger and turning you into a cannibal, who is also associated with the dark, is the eldest, and Nocturnal is originally mistaken for Nymera. Nocturnal is known as Noctra by the Khajiit, and spawned from the blood of Lorcan after his death, born at the steps of the Void Gate. After being mistaken for Nymera, she got into a fight with Boethra, essentially Cat Boethia, right out of the Void Womb. But she didn't get folded, which is incredibly impressive, considering Boethia has an incredible fight record, which includes a win against Trinimac, Auriel's champion. After learning that Noctra probably isn't Nocturnal, Boethra then brings her before Azura. Long story short, Noctra flees into the void for a bit, steals the skeleton key from Azura, then comes back to save the day during a massive battle to defend the moons, which involved Boethia, Azura, Nirn's Dagon, Molag Bal, Meridia, Vermina, and Mephala. Ur-Dra was on the side of the three good Daedra here, and apparently studied under Boethia in the art of the blade. But what's important is that the Khajiit see Noctra's link to the Void. She and Namira are the pair most commonly tied to it, and Noctra being mistaken for Namira could explain why she is seen as the oldest, or perhaps her becoming a cloak of darkness after using the skeleton key on herself during that epic Daedra battle, which caused her to grow mighty and taller than the rest, explain why she's seen as the strongest, hence her title, Ur-Dra. What is clear is that this title clearly means something. Nocturnal has been known to brag about it. Sotha-Sil, who wasn't on par power-wise but still a god, calls her by that name, and Hermaeus Mora, another Daedric prince famed for being as old as dirt, has a similar title, Ur-Daedra. As a prefix means proto, primitive or origin, so in Hermaeus Mora's case it probably means something like proto or original Daedra. With Nocturnal though, it is a bit weirder. The Khajiit state that Namira and Azura have the title instead, and with Namira being the eldest and most associated with the Void, while Azura is Fadame's, essentially Sithis' favourite daughter, perhaps the Dra part has something to do with the Void specifically. If the Sithis stuff here is a little confusing, I have a video on the guide that elaborates on all of that, but what you really need to know is that everyone acknowledges that Nocturnal is powerful, and perhaps her power and age come from the Void. Nocturnal herself claims that before Oblivion, there was Nocturnal, with her followers believing she predates the current reality itself. Now that's all well and dandy, but what does Nocturnal actually do with all this power? And specifically, how does she affect Nirn with it?
Now that the Evermere has been restored, you stand before me awaiting your accolades. A pat on your head, a kiss on your cheek.
Nocturnal seems relatively chill when it comes to having an effect on Nirn. She doesn't tend to launch invasions, have whole provinces worship her, party it up, or steal every bit of knowledge available to her. In fact, rather than dilly-dally with mortals, it seems that she's more about exerting her power on other Daedric princes. There was a moment in ESO where Nocturnal takes over the Crystal Tower. While the Crystal Tower is, or rather was, in Nirn, she used it to exist in every reality at once, essentially becoming omnipresent, and definitely being the most powerful Daedric prince at this moment. She invaded the other Oblivion realms with her forces. Yes, apparently all of them at once, and it took the trio of Clavicus Vile, Methala and Meridia along with the Vestige, ESO's protagonist, and the Sigic Order to foil her plans. Now technically all the Daedric princes were against her at this point because she was invading all their realms, but these were the guys that actually stopped her, and good thing they did. Because Nocturnal apparently got bored of the current realm or impatient and sick of waiting for Alduin to eat it, so she sought to unravel reality, to wait for another to rise, and when it did, it's assumed that she would take its place as its one god, enveloping everything in her shadow. She essentially tried to accelerate Ragnarok, or at least the Elder Scrolls equivalent of it. Yeah, I take back what I said about her not affecting Nirn. Although it is interesting that she beelined her forces against the Daedric princes. She clearly has no fear of them and swung her weight around as the oldest sibling would. I think. I don't have any siblings, so I don't really know. Another way of thinking about this is that Nocturnal essentially did what Jiggalag did by invading other Oblivion realms, except way faster and in a more dangerous way, because she was going to bin all of reality, and she needed to do quite a bit of scheming to get this done. In the lead up to this, she worked with Clavicus Vile and Methala forming the Triad, stole from Sotha-Sil, betrayed Clavicus Vile and Methala, corrupted Dawnbreaker, trapped Meridia in a bunch of shadows, and so on. It's all very scheming and thief-like, which should surprise no one given Nocturnal's most prominent group of worshippers. Nocturnal, most famously, is the patron goddess of thieves. Being Lady Luck does help thieves in their many escapades, and thieves tend to stick to the shadows, unseen. That's sort of Nocturnal's whole deal. Hell, she even put a curse on an artifact, the Grey Cowl, which erases a mortal's name from mortal memory. And the Thieves Guild decided that actually worked very well for them. Another one of her artifacts, the Skeleton Key, is also a perfect example of how she resonates with thieves. I mentioned it before as formerly belonging to Ur-Dra, according to the Khajiit, before being stolen. Even Nocturnal's most famous artifact is stolen from someone else. It's pretty on brand. While we can use it as an invincible lockpick that can unlock any door in Skyrim, its true potential lies in, well, unlocking potential. In the Khajiit tales around Nocturnal, it's what allowed her to become Shadow itself, and immediately more powerful. It can also open portals and has greater uses that we don't quite know about, putting it firmly in the category of plot-changing doohickey, if Bethesda ever want to go down that route. Nocturnal seems to use its portal opening capabilities most to unlock and keep open the Ebonmere, essentially her door to her Oblivion realm, the Evergloam. I like to think that is essentially her house key. It's just funnier that way for me. All these Daedric Princes involve these grand artifacts given out as some rewards. Malakath gives us a giant hammer, Meridia gives you one of the most powerful swords in the Elder Scrolls, and Nocturnal just wants you to give her her house keys back. The best part of it is that the skeleton key goes missing or gets stolen periodically, and we aren't sure whether Nocturnal does this intentionally for a laugh, or just doesn't care enough about her house keys to stop it from happening.
So, once again, the key has been stolen, and a champion returns it to the sepulchre.
She could just keep it in a pocket somewhere on her person. Actually, I don't think she's got pockets in that thing. Now, this is all quite ironic, considering that the Nightingale Trinity's whole thing is to keep the skeleton key in the Twilight Sepulchre, and guard it with their lives and even their deaths, until Nocturnal says that you can come party it up in the Evergloam. You essentially spend a lifetime, and possibly an after-lifetime, protecting Nocturnal's house keys until she lets you into that house. Wild. But why do the Nightingales want to go to the Evergloam so badly? What's even there?
Gallus's oath has been paid. His actions have satisfied the terms. Now his spirit becomes one with the Evergloam, the realm of perpetual twilight and the cradle of shadow.
The Evergloam is not the most joyous name for an Oblivion realm. Actually, none of them have particularly jolly names. The Fields of Regret, the Deadlands, Cold Harbour, not great holiday destinations. Now, as the name suggests, the Evergloam is in perpetual darkness, but its structure is what's most interesting. While most Oblivion realms sort of just sit there in their own pockets, and sometimes have little pockets inside of them, like Hermaeus Mora's Fathom's Drift in Apocrypha, the Evergloam exists adjacent to all realms of reality all at once. Somehow. It is said that if you're in the dark and get jump scared into taking a quick look behind you, you can see the Evergloam for a split second. I guess it's literally the fear of the dark in some ways. It apparently consists of one main realm and a myriad of pocket realms, with one example being the Crow's Wood. It should be noted that the realm is forever shifting, and as a result, different people will see different things when in the Evergloam. You can see trees casting long shadows, crumbled ruins, and a lot of purple, because nothing screams shadows and darkness quite like purple. If you're a mortal who gets accepted into the Evergloam, you become a shadow, or shade, which doesn't sound like a great existence considering that you can sleep but never awaken fully rested, crave the light but can't enjoy it, since if you do go into the light, you get banished and weakened. Why would anyone want this? Although most who worship Nocturnal in some capacity don't end up as her shadows. As we said before, the Nightingales do tend to wait before being let into the Evergloam, and in the meantime they're spectres, guarding the Twilight Sepulchre. This is also because Nocturnal has widespread yet low-key worship. You tend to give her quick prayers if you're on the heist or just for a bit of luck. Remember, she is Lady Luck, so perhaps you'd even give her a prayer if you're making a bet, playing a luck-based game, or even if you're hiding from something. But she doesn't tend to be a prince with a massive follower base that want to get plucked into her realm, like say Malakath and all of his orcs. This does make sense given how it kind of feels like it would suck to be a shadow in her realm, but shadows aren't the only thing in the Evergloam. Along with the shadows, there are nocturnal shrikes, a type of edgy Daedra, and I guess those are the natives, along with crow Daedra, who are just crows with purple eyes, hags, hag ravens, glow wolves, and shadowy werewolves. The hag ravens and shadowy werewolves are an interesting one, considering that hag ravens and werewolves are most associated with Hircine. Hey, I covered him earlier, check that out. This is particularly confusing because if the shadowy werewolves are shadows of werewolves, then that means that Nocturnal was able to steal some people who were cursed by Hircine, bound for the hunting grounds. This might be a side effect of the Evergloam being adjacent to every other realm, so some of its inhabitants take the appearance of those in those realms, like the werewolves and the hag ravens, although witch covens are also known to worship Nocturnal. The biggest of the bunch is the Witch Mother Coven, a bunch of witches who venerate Nocturnal and carry out her bidding. Much like the Evergloam, the Coven is forever changing, and you can find them literally everywhere in Tamriel, from the Somerset Isles to Morrowind. Strangely, these witches seem to be kind of good, despite their appearance, acting as oracles and seers, looking for disturbances in the Evergloam that could potentially threaten Nirn. They'll hire just about anyone, even this housecat, Khajiit, and brew some crazy concoctions in their cauldrons to help them with their scrying. Essentially, they do drugs to help them see the future. They also sacrifice people and turn them into skeletons called reapers. Yeah, that's why I call them kinda good. Now the Coven is somewhat familiar yet alien to the covens you meet that are typically under Hircine, like the Glenmoral witches. This somewhat familiar yet alien feeling pretty much sums up the Evergloam in a nutshell, since it has many familiar elements to the people of Nirn, yet they have been changed and warped in certain ways to feel unfamiliar. It's similar to how the dark often plays tricks on the mind, making familiar roads feel as though you've never walked down them before. This sort of sums up Nocturnal too, since she is not only dark and shadow, but also the manipulations and obscurings of those shadows. She hides her followers but also her truth, and because of that, it's really difficult for us to know what the truth about her really is, whether that means her power, intent, or age. There is one truth we do know, however. She has a lot of enemies.
I bid you to drink deeply from the Ebonmere mortal, for this is where the agent of Nocturnal is born.
It shouldn't be much of a surprise that Nocturnal and Meridia have a rivalry. Nocturnal is the representation of night and the dark. Meridia is all about light and life. This doesn't necessarily mean that Nocturnal is straight up evil and Meridia is straight up good. It's more complicated than that, but that's beside the point. The pair have been at odds since seemingly forever. They fight during Nocturnal's Khajiit origin, and they fight when Nocturnal is trying to rewrite reality. It also doesn't help Meridia that she is also an enemy of those that Nocturnal is allied with, like the three good Daedra in the Khajiit tale, and the triad of Nocturnal, Mythala, and Clavicus Vile. Along with Meridia, Nocturnal can't stand Mehrunes Dagon either. Now to be fair, Nocturnal isn't exactly precious about her allies. Remember that she started a fight with literally all of the Daedric princes, betraying Clavicus Vile and Mythala in the process. She would have also invaded the realm of Boethia, who in the Khajiit tale was meant to be a kind of mentor for her. She's also apparently an enemy of Azura specifically, according to the Oblivion faction data found in Daggerfall, despite the two being allies-ish in the Khajiit tale. So being an ally of Nocturnal doesn't mean you're going to be safe from her intent or wrath. Now granted, most of the information we have from Daggerfall specifically could be out of date considering all the retcons between that game and now, but her shortlist of allies whom she hasn't had a spat with at some point is very small. She comes across as the Daedric Prince who's willing to be in conflict with just about anyone, and I don't mean this in a Shea Gorath, let's play a prank on every Daedric Prince, then get someone to write about it. She literally invaded all of them at once, and with her realm being adjacent to everyone else's, staging invasions is probably not all that hard for her, logistically speaking. This probably tells you how powerful she is, because she doesn't really care all that much about keeping allegiances going, nor does she seem to care all that much about the consequences of breaking these allegiances.
No! Are you ever not going to fall for that?
While I don't tend to do this for other Daedric Princes because there tends to be more to them, and it usually isn't this obvious, I see a lot of similarities with Nocturnal and the primordial Greek goddess Nyx. Nyx is the daughter of Chaos, and Nocturnal is very much seen as coming from the Void and Sithis, the embodiment of chaos and change. As such, Nyx is one of the oldest gods in the ancient Greek mythos, feared by even the Olympians for her power and authority. She is the night itself, and in the Iliad, even Zeus isn't willing to mess with her. With Nocturnal representing night, darkness and mystery, and having the title of Ur-Dra, the eldest and most powerful, there are a lot of links here. But the main difference is that Nyx is a mother of many, many gods, like actual death, Thanatos, revenge itself, Nemesis, and the embodiment of sleep, Hypnos, as well as Nocturnal's link with thieves, which I don't believe Nyx shares. Still, the pair seem to have a similar status in their worlds, or I guess mythologies, being the spawn of the embodiment of chaos, one of the eldest divine beings, the embodiment of night, and being immensely powerful in the do not mess with category even among other gods. Nyx also tends to take a back seat in a lot of myths, while Zeus and his Olympian crew are doing all sorts of silliness. Except for that one time when Nocturnal tried to invade every Oblivion realm at once and end the world, she tends to be relatively out of the way, probably scheming in the shadows somewhere. To be fair to her, Alduin and Mehrunes Dagon might have actually destroyed the world in a past cycle, and Molag Bal ruled that world at one point, so, you know, it's not that bad I guess, it's still pretty bad. But Nocturnal seemingly did very little throughout their history, then seemingly randomly decided it was time to try and nuke literally everything, remake everything, and become the supreme god of that everything. It seems a little random given what we know about her, but this might actually be my fault. Perhaps I have to broaden my horizons about what Nocturnal actually is, and what she wants.
The conduit to Nocturnal's realm, the realm of Evergloam, has been in Skyrim, well, longer than recorded history. It's through this conduit that we're given Nocturnal's greatest gift, our luck.
As with anything super old in the Elder Scrolls, it's impossible to know what Nocturnal actually wants, because comprehending it is an impossibility. It's the case with Hermaeus Mora, it's the case with the Hist, hey, there's a video on that too, you scaly fans, and it's a case with Nocturnal here. By her very nature, Nocturnal isn't meant to be understood. Her followers find her mysterious and mystifying, but she's all about shadows, and thus obscuring her intentions with those shadows is simply part of her nature. Only she understands herself, and she is someone who is used to being in multiple places at once. She's not wholly omnipresent, except from that one time, but if her realm is anything to go by, Nocturnal can probably be multiple things at the same time. Her unknowing nature is probably less eldritch abomination that people can't understand, and more, I'm a lot of different things, you wouldn't understand any of me, I'm from a different time, and screw you, I'm not elaborating anyway. She is Lady Luck, so there's probably going to be an element of randomness to it. Luck is meant to be random after all. Emphasis on meant to be. It doesn't really seem all that random when I've rolled my third natural one of the night, now does it, Nocturnal? Maybe that's what I'm doing wrong. Maybe I need to pray to Nocturnal on D&D nights. Huh. Now this ladylike element is why she's so popular among thieves, but most thieves aren't cultists or all that ritualistic. Sure, we have the nightingales, but most thieves are just about the money. The Benjamins, or I guess the Septims, and they sort of follow Nocturnal's example, since her interactions with mortals seem quite transactional.
But we both know this has little to do with honor and oaths and loyalty. It's about the reward.
She does a healthy bit of manipulation too. I mean, which Daedric Prince doesn't, but apparently is not all that unkind. She's known to enter into people's dreams and listen to their problems, occasionally comforting them. She's like a really empathetic therapist, which seems odd because it contradicts the idea of her being some wannabe ultimate god above all others. What kind of being that strives to rule everything and rewrite all of reality to be its ruler also sits there and listens to the problems of pretty unremarkable mortals just to get something out of them? It'd be like the late Queen Elizabeth II listening to the many problems of a worker ant so the ant can grab a leaf for her. Now granted, Nocturnal could be doing all of this therapy just so she can get what she wants out of the mortals, but her actively comforting them seems to contradict my idea that apathy seems to be a theme with her in some ways. She doesn't look at Nirn specifically as somewhere she wants to dominate and rule. She wanted to rule and rewrite all of reality and aimed for her siblings in Oblivion. So it doesn't really seem that she cares all that much for mortality as a whole. She also doesn't care that much for her house key, skeleton key, despite all it can do, and either lets it get stolen for some unknown reasons or because of apathy, since it really shouldn't be that hard to just put it in a pocket somewhere. She seems quite apathetic to her nightingales too, just sort of leaving the souls of those who serve her hanging around until she can be bothered to let them into the Evergloam. But I suppose when you are in Nocturnal's position, apathy is a bit of a given. If the whole Ur-Dra idea is true, and Nocturnal is both the eldest and most powerful, older than current reality, it follows that she doesn't have much of an attachment to that reality, because it isn't the only one she's ever known. If she is so much more powerful than practically everyone else around her, then why should she really care about anyone else? She doesn't rule them, and maybe that was the point of her rewriting reality to wrap everything in her shadow, and become a sort of one true god, kinda. I don't really know what the end goal would have been. The thing is, even without this power boost, everyone knows she's not to be messed with. She rolled up to the Clockwork City and turned Sothasil into a vegetable, while his shadow danced for her. Sothasil, who was still a god at this point, needed ESO's protagonist to save him. It should also be noted that, after Nocturnal invaded the other Oblivion realms, it didn't seem like they all gathered to take revenge or a preemptive step to stop her from trying something like that again. Now that could be because Nocturnal wouldn't have been capable of such a feat again, and the other Daedric princes knew this, but it might also be because she's too powerful for the other 15 princes to realistically do anything to stop her. While 16 of them got together to turn Jiggalag into Sheogorath for fear that he would invade all of Oblivion to turn it into his ideal of order, nothing seems to have happened to Nocturnal for basically doing the same thing, except way faster. She's still very much Nocturnal after ESO, scantily clad and all, although she hasn't tried anything reality ending in between. So maybe she's given up on the idea, or that was her one shot. The Crystal Tower, which she used in that scenario, got destroyed by Mehrunes Dagon during the Oblivion Crisis after all. And if you want to know more details about that, along with what everyone else was doing during the Oblivion Crisis, check out this video here. Now there is also the whole thing with Sheogorath, which we don't have details for, and I explain it in this video, which you can watch after this one, but Sheogorath has the 16 Accords of Madness, essentially the times he got one up over every Daedric Prince individually, We only know of 3 of those stories, and Nocturnal's story is one we don't have details for, but Sheogorath did get one over her somehow. There are 16 Accords after all, and it is assumed that Nocturnal would be one of the 16 Daedric Princes that Sheogorath pranked. You could perhaps use this as evidence that Sheogorath, not Nocturnal, is the strongest Daedric Prince, especially because he came from Jiggalag. Although pranking or winning a bet over someone doesn't necessarily mean you are more powerful than them. I wouldn't stand a chance against Eddie Hall in any kind of a fight, but I could put laxatives in his cranberry juice. I wouldn't actually do that though, Eddie. I'm too scared of you. So, finally, is Nocturnal actually the strongest Daedric Prince? The truth is, there's no way of definitively knowing because we don't actually know what the Ur-Dra title means. We're also assuming it means eldest and strongest, with Nocturnal herself saying that she's older than Oblivion, which does make sense. She is the night, and before light and creation is the dark. Perhaps she is referencing the void that she came from, and the void, the dark, the night, is older than creation. Nocturnal has, at the very least, shown that she has enough power to not fear anyone, especially her other Daedric siblings. She invaded all of them at once, and despite the example set with Jiggalag, she did not fear the repercussions. She also didn't seem to face any either, and whether she is the most powerful Daedric Prince is up for debate. It's clear that she acts like she is, calling herself Ur-Dra, the eldest, the most powerful, the Night, Lady Luck, and ultimately it's always going to be an uphill battle with Lady Luck against you, even if you're a Daedric Prince. Plot armor beats luck though. That's what I've learned from ESO anyway.
And certainly not very cinematic. I mean, luck? I mean, what coked out glass pipe sucker came up with that little chestnut? Probably a guy who can't draw feet. Once again, it all falls on my shoulders. It's why I'm cursed to be a solo act. Wander the earth. I'm sorry, what did you say?
I'm in.
How in the
Thanks for watching this Nocturnal video. She's fascinating, but it does feel like she has less lore compared to a lot of the others, especially all the others that I've covered thus far. And again, if you haven't watched my other Daedric Prince videos, check out the playlist. It's quite difficult for her to compare to a lot of those Daedric Princes who get a whole mainline DLC to be the villains in, like Hircine, Hermaeus Mora and Sheogorath. Still, I did look at my list of princes that I have done, and while I know that the princes don't technically have genders and tend to just represent themselves in a certain way, I couldn't help but feel a little sexist given that, you know, all the ones I covered before Nocturnal are men. It also feels like ESO gave Nocturnal more than the mainline games, which isn't always a bad thing, although a bit of me does feel like they've got a bit out of hand with Nocturnal's intentions. Conquering Tamriel is one thing, becoming omnipotent and rewriting all of reality, essentially ending existence as we know it, is mental behaviour and doesn't necessarily vibe with the idea that I have for Nocturnal, although that could be a me problem. Who knows, maybe she heard one too many bad things in those dream therapy sessions she does, and decided enough's enough. Everything's ending and we're starting again. Anyway, let me know which Daedric Prince you want me to cover next. Even if there's quite a time gap between these Daedric Prince videos, just know that I will eventually get to the next one. If you enjoyed this one and the wider series as a whole, please do the whole YouTube ritual of liking, commenting and subscribing, and hopefully I'll see you in another video later down the line.